How we doing, everybody? And we made it to Friday here on Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I am your host, Trage. Hopefully everybody is having a great Friday wherever you're at, whatever you're doing in the great state of Wisconsin or outstretched from Wisconsin. I hope you are having a fantastic day. Today, we are talking Brewers. Lost the wild card yesterday, or 2 days ago. And we need to talk about the season recap. What we saw in this season, what went good, what went wrong, where the Brewers kind of fell apart in this season. All in all, above what was expected. I mean, you looked at this team coming in with the missing pieces and the question marks and the rookies in the lineups, and you would have thought to yourself, okay, I'm looking at maybe a low 80 win team. That's what I thought. I was low 80s, mid 80s, maybe 85, maybe 85. And they surpassed it. What did they end up? 92 and 70? That's nothing to shake. I mean, that's a tip of the cap right there. 92 and 70 with how inconsistent the offense was at times. The lack of clutch hitters in this lineup, we're going to cover that. Lack of clutch hitters in this lineup. And this team still managed, being one of the worst hitting teams in all of baseball, to pull off one of the best records in the NL. It's some kind of talent, that's for sure. I mean, I saw a scale earlier on today, made me kind of feel a little bit better about the Brewers. It starts out, it says, scorching April start, key player out till September, mid-season doom swoon. We're confident in the group we have in the clubhouse. Then it rolls into Craig Timber. Catastrophic late-season injury, rolls into soul-destroying postseason loss, rolls back into in spring training. We're confident in the group in the clubhouse. That's Brewer baseball for you right here. That's the most accurate chart I've seen diagramming what Brewer baseball truly is. It's always, we roll throughout the season and all we get told is we have the clubhouse is what we got. This is what we got. We feel confident. We're going to roll with it. And you know what they do? They roll with it. And they get wins. And they sit there at the top of the NL Central, first or second in the NL Central, sit there for the longest time, win the NL Central, and then lose our hopes in the playoffs. And simply told, we're told all the time by Matt Arnold, Craig Counsell, Mark Ananasio, we're putting the best team out there for you. We're putting the best team out there. The best team out there. That's what they tell us. Jesse Winker was a part of your best team. What if that's your definition of your best team? We need to get a new owner. We need to get a new general manager, and we need to get a new manager, because that is the epitome of low point. If that's the best we got, and it's by far the best we got. You wanted to throw him on the bench? Sure, throw him on the bench. I don't know if you were praying for another Jesse Winker Reds when he was with the Reds, even when he was with them. He wasn't very good with the Mariners. So were you praying for him just to turn it around in 2 at-bats in the playoffs when the pressure's on the most? You were asking Jesse Winker to do the most? Yeah. If you look at it on the season, he was a good pinch hitter. I saw a lot of people who, when somebody said something about Jesse Winker, they came back with, oh, well, on the season he was a good pinch hitter, and he's a good career pinch hitter, and Okay. I'm going to be blatantly honest with you. And, you know, a lot of people are talking about, well, it's Bush League. I was listening to one of my favorite Wisconsin broadcasters, Bill Michaels, and he said that he was saying the same thing. He said it was told that it was like Bush League out there, that they were booing their own player. And I said the same thing right as Bill Michaels said the same thing. Booing Jesse Winker? No. They weren't booing Jesse Winker. They weren't booing him because he's who he is. They were booing because in the situation that they were put in that moment, we were pinch hitting Jesse Winker. We weren't booing Jesse Winker solely. They were booing Craig Counsell. They were booing the Brewers organization because we keep throwing guys out there who aren't able to get a hit. They aren't able to put the ball in play consistently. Look at Bryce Terang in this series. Bryce Terang, I love his defense. Great defender. I mean, Gold Glove caliber. Dude could win it at short. He could win it at second base. He's a Gold Glove guy. But his bat is awful. Awful. I can't tell you, how many times can you swing and miss with the bases loaded? How many times can you swing and miss with runners on second and third, first and second, whatever the situation, and Bryce Terang's up? Bases loaded, nobody out. You strike out swinging on 3 straight pitches. You don't even come close to touching one. You swung 8 inches, and I bet you, if you were to freeze frame it and somehow get an accurate tape measure underneath there, it was 8+ inches he swung underneath of a fastball, dead red. Dead red. There was no movement on the fastball. It was straight as an arrow, 4-seamer, 95. I picture it perfect. Right down the middle. And you swing 8+ inches below it. And that's your best option. That's the best team we can put out on the field right there. You have Andrew Monasterio sitting on your bench, 260 hitter. When the Brewers were hot, Andrew Monasterio was right there with this team the entire way. He was right there with them. Not right off the bat in the season. He didn't get brought up until Brian Anderson had his injury problems. And Monasterio became a bright spot. He was a bright spot in this Brewers lineup. And yet, when push came to shove, Andrew Monasterio wasn't out there. Instead of working with what we had, working with what got us, because we're this team that loves to say we love our clubhouse. Our clubhouse guys are the ones who are going to get us to where we need to go. So instead of working with Brian Anderson and keeping Andrew Monasterio out there in this lineup, what do? We go out on the waiver wire, and we go and get Josh Donaldson. And everybody said, oh, well, we need another veteran on the bench. We need another veteran. Okay. We need another veteran on the bench. Instead, he basically took Andrew Monasterio's spot. Andrew Monasterio went through a little slump. I will not deny Andrew Monasterio went through a little bit of a slump there late in the season. But Andrew Monasterio is one of the most consistent Brewer hitters through that second half of the season. 260 hitter. He hovered around 280 for a while, dropped down to 260 towards the end. But what got you to where you were? Why do you change that? And then you look at the changes that don't get made. Game 1, wild card. 12 hits, 17 runners on, 3 runs. 3 runs on 17 runs. We had 2 runners on basically every inning, if not the bases loaded, every single inning in that ball game. You put guys into scoring position with no outs, 1 out, and you can't muster across a run in any of those scenarios. Diamondbacks weren't the better team in this series. They weren't. And you can argue with me, and there's people that I've looked at people saying it all day, and they said, oh, Diamondbacks were just the better team in this series. They weren't. They were not the better team in this series. The Brewers out-hit the Diamondbacks in this series. Pitching, you could have said it struggled for the Brewers a little bit. Yeah, it struggled a little bit. 4 runs in the first one by Burns. Williams came in, gave up 2. Peralta, 4 runs there. 4 or 5, right around it. So, starting pitching gave you 4 runs. They gave up 4 runs. You put in game 1, Burns gave up 3 home runs. 4 runs. You put 17 guys on base. 12 hits. It's not the lack of hitting. It's the lack of clutch hitting. It's the inability to put the ball in play. Why are we going with this piss poor, we're going to hit the ball over their heads attitude? Why? This team, I talked about it yesterday, and it's got to be reiterated again. This team did not have an identity all season long. And by identity, I mean when you look back at the 2018 season, you look back at that season, you knew who you had. Christian Yelich was your MVP. He was that dude. Lorenzo Cain got on base for you. Ryan Braun, clutch hit. He was a clutch hitter. That's plain and simple. You can hate Ryan Braun. You can hate what he did, but he was a clutch hitter for this team. Jesus Aguilar, came on, power hitter. Mike Moustakas, power hitter. Travis Shaw, power hitter. Orlando Arcia, defense. That's what he was there for, defense. Catching-wise, you had Eric Kratz. He became a pretty good hitter for you. I know I'm missing guys in there, obviously. I think it was Santana. Santana in right field? I think Santana in right field. But you had an identity. You knew what you were going to get out of these bats. Now you roll into this season with this team. What was the philosophy when we went up to the plate there? Because it seemed like a lot of these guys tried to be power hitters. They weren't, but they tried. Willie Adames tries to unload on every single pitch. Finally, towards the end of the season, in the postseason there, he started to drive the ball into right field like he should. I thought that was good signs for him. Carlos Santana came in late, became a little bit of a power threat for you. Mark Canha down the stretch, power hitter for you. Josh Donaldson's the dud. I look back on that Josh Donaldson signing, and I think it was a complete waste of time. I really do. Bryce Terang seemed like he was trying to unload on every single baseball, but he couldn't. He wasn't even close to it. Him and Joey Wiemer, both of them could have stayed down in AAA. Sal Frelick got injured early on in the minor league season. Probably would have came up earlier. Came on, and Sal Frelick was a pretty good on-base guy for this Brewers team. Struggled in the playoffs, but a pretty good on-base guy for this team. Andrew Monasterio, great contact hitter for this team. Didn't try to do too much. Poke the ball out there, put the ball in play. That was what Andrew Monasterio did. Christian Yelich, for as much as people love to say that Christian Yelich is back and he's that guy again, he's not. He's not. Christian Yelich is far off right now. Far off of that MVP season. Far off of the seasons he had with the Marlins before the Brewers got him. He's not there yet. He's not. He was an inconsistent bat again. He had a decent batting average, yeah. I will agree. Decent batting average. And he exceeded expectations in the home run department. But when you needed Christian Yelich most, 9 times out of 10, he wasn't there for you. He was not that veteran presence that you needed. Far from it. The veterans on this Brewers team, the ones who were the mainstays here from the beginning, weren't there for the Brewers consistently all season long. Willie Adames came on in the postseason. I'll give him that. I think he had like 571 in the postseason. He came on. Yelich, postseason was okay. Regular season, he was there. He started to flirt back up there at 280 and then dropped off again on us. And then it was his back. His back's a problem again. The big injuries to the Brewers were killers. You look early on in the season, Garrett Mitchell goes down. Brewers were riding a hot wave before that. All of a sudden, Garrett Mitchell goes down and this Brewers team starts to slump off. And we can't find an answer. It starts to get ugly. And they turned it around. It was the rookies. Right away, it was the rookies. Joey Wiemer and Bryce Terang, right off the bat in this season, solid for the Brewers. But what were Bryce Terang and Joey Wiemer doing that was so much different than late in the season here? Bat on ball, contact hitters, and simplifying the game, watching pitches, and not chasing. Simple as that. Early on, I remember earlier in the season, and I was watching that first Cubs series, and I was texting with a buddy of mine, and I said, hey, this Bryce Terang and this Joey Wiemer, son of a gun, do they have some eyeballs? Because they're watching some close pitches. They're not chasing. They're not letting the moment get too big for them here in this opening series, their debuts. They're just playing baseball like they've always played baseball. And that changed. I don't know what changed in their head. After the first month of the season, it was downhill. Those guys started to slump off. Joey Wiemer never picked it back up. Bryce Terang found a little bit at times, but he never truly picked it back up. Then came in guys like Andrew Monasterio and Sal Frelick, and those guys bat on ball, and Sal Frelick has got a pair of eyes on him. And it went away from him, too. In the postseason there, he was chasing a lot more than we've seen Sal Frelick chase. This Brewers team this season was built on pitching and defense. They told us that. Told us that from the beginning. Pitching and defense. You're not going to beat the Braves with pitching and defense. They get to pitchers. That's what they do. You weren't going to beat the Dodgers with pitching and defense. Those guys, they know how to. Look at the series against the Dodgers there. Burns was throwing a shutout through 8. Pampas came in, gave up a home run. Dodgers won 1-0. They lost the no-hitter to the Yankees that they had going through 10, 11 innings. Sal Frelick had to run into a freaking wall to try to save the game. And they couldn't muster across the run for Burns in that outing. This offense was pitiful in this season. It really was. They had no great bats. They had solid bats. They had okay bats. And then they had downright terrible bats. The offseason acquisitions, the signings, Luke Voigt and Darren Ruff. Never saw Darren Ruff again after he cut his kneecap open. Josh Donaldson. Missing guys here. Jesse Winker in that trade, in that Colt Wong trade. Jesse Winker coming in. All guys that the Brewers prayed would return back to what they once were. And they didn't. They don't. It just doesn't, magic doesn't just happen like that. It doesn't just spark. When does Brewers ownership say enough's enough? Maybe this next offseason, instead of wasting our time through the first 2 months of the season with guys who we are praying will return back to what they were, maybe we just say screw it and we go out and sign a big bat. A veteran bat that can hit. Wasted time. Didn't go after Justin Turner. What does he do with the Red Sox? Pretty sure he was dang near a 280 hitter. I'd take a 280 hitter on this Brewers team. And guess what Justin Turner had? Postseason experience. We're all about postseason experience with the Brewers because that's why Josh Donaldson got the spot over Monasterio. The only thing I can think of why Josh Donaldson got a spot over Monasterio. Postseason experience. He had all this experience in the world. Paid dividends, didn't it? The Brewers struggled mightily offensively all season long. People just didn't really, you look at a lot of people here commenting on posts and everything like that all over social media, and they're kind of like trying to block it out. They're trying to not feel the truth, see it in front of their eyes. This Brewers offense was terrible. No, they weren't that bad. They won 92 games. Oh, yeah. Oh, they won 92. They won 92 games on the back of their pitching. Because this starting rotation and bullpen, when right, they could win you 162 games when right in a 1-0 game. That's how good the pitching was. But when you get against some great teams, you're going to have to be able to put up runs. And the Diamondbacks in that wild card series, they weren't a great team. They weren't a phenomenal team. They weren't even in the realm of what you would have faced with the Braves and the Dodgers. The Diamondbacks were scrappy. They took advantage of situations, and they came up with timely hits. Plain and simple. The exact opposite of the Brewers. We can put guys on. We showed it. We can put guys on like crazy. Oh, the offense wasn't that bad. We should blame the pitching for this one. We should blame Craig Counsell. The only thing I could blame Craig Counsell for was some stupid moves. I could blame him for that. I could say, Craig Counsell, you made some stupid moves in this series. I can't blame Craig Counsell for game 1. 12 hits, 17 runners on, 3 runs. I can't blame Craig for that. I really can't. I can't blame him for game 2 when the bases were loaded with 1 out. Sal Frelick was coming up. He could have went with the pinch hitter, I guess. Then you lose Sal out in the outfield. You got to throw Joey Wiemer in there. Then Joey Wiemer, if his bat would have came back up, Joey Wiemer gets the at bat. And people are still pissed. Craig Counsell, I was thinking about it. And yesterday I said I would be okay if Craig Counsell walked out the door. I would be A-okay with it. I was a little ticked off of Craig Counsell, especially the use of Jesse Winker and the mismanagement of the bullpen and everything else in between. Craig Counsell has done a lot with a little for this Brewers team. He's done a lot with a little. I'll give him that. Some of these teams shouldn't even be looking at the playoffs, and somehow he gets them there. Timely managing. He pushes the right button every once in a while. Gets a win here and there. And saves his job for another year. But his playoff record is when we really have to take a look at. The Brewers have lost 9 of their last 10 playoff games. Since playing within one game of the 2018 World Series, the Brewers are 1-8 in the postseason while averaging 1.8 runs per game. Since Game 7 of the 2018 NLCS, the Brewers have had 98 runners reach base via the hit, walk, or hit by pitch. They have scored 17 times. 17 runs with 98 guys reaching the base. Something needs to change in Milwaukee. Something really needs to change in Milwaukee. You can keep throwing it out there and saying everything's fine. We get back to the postseason, that's cool. That's cool. We can get to the postseason. How many more years do you want to just reach the postseason and have that first round exit? Because to me, we're no different than what the Cubs did. Yeah, we won the NL Central and we made it to the first round of the playoffs. We got 2 more games. We have an NL Central championship crown for another year. That's it. That's all we have to show for it. The playoffs were the worst. The playoffs were terrible. I mean, there was no going around anything that the playoffs were one of the worst 2 baseball games I've ever watched. Plain and simple. The Brewers didn't have an answer for the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks answered the Brewers every time. Brewers put up some runs. Diamondbacks came right back. So how do you move forward from here? How do you get this team back on track? And when I say back on track, I don't mean let's go win the NL Central and then lose in the first round of the playoffs again. Far from it. I mean, how do you put a roster together that is built for October? Because you say all the time that we've heard it from Greg Gounsell, we've heard it from Mark Ananasio, we've heard it from Christian Yelich. This team is built for October. This team is built for October. I don't think so. I think it's far from it. This series came down to, can the veterans come up in big spots? And they couldn't. They couldn't come up in big spots. They could not have come up with the big hit. That big hit when the Brewers needed it. There was time the rookies came up, and you can't take any blame away from the rookies because look at the opposite side with Diamondbacks. A lot of rookies producing on the opposite side. But momentum of this baseball games was in the Diamondbacks' favor. Helps out a lot. When American Family Field is dead silent through a lot of this game because you're not giving them anything to cheer about. You take stadium noise right out of it. You give the Diamondbacks basically a neutral game. The way the season ended for the Brewers is kind of what I expected out of the Brewers in this one, or in this season. This is a fitting end to the 2023 season for the Milwaukee Brewers. But we're going to look at team stats quick, just to really emphasize what I am saying here with how inconsistent the bats were for the Brewers all season long. Looking at team stats for the Brewers in this season, see if I can't get them to pull up here. For some reason, everything is being slow. Looking at the stats for the Brewers on the season here, they were team batting average. We'll look at team batting average first. They were sitting 23rd in all of baseball at a 240 average on the season. 240. Look at the top half of that there. Braves, Rangers, Tampa Bay Rays. The Marlins came in the 4 spot. The Diamondbacks were at 14 with 250 team average. And here the Brewers sit at 23rd. Team OPS. Where's the Brewers? No, 23rd again. Look at hits on the season. Just hits. Plain and simple hits. 26th in all of baseball. They were below the Detroit Tigers and the Pittsburgh Pirates. The White Sox were in there ahead of them. Team hits. You want to look at long balls? 24th in all of baseball with 165. Beat out the Rockies and Royals by 2 in this season. They were behind the Oakland Athletics in team home runs on the season. Strikeouts, though, we were 15th in strikeouts on the season as a team, batting. So, got to the top of a leaderboard and something there. But what I'm saying with the Brewers is that all season long, inconsistent hitting was what killed them. They never had the bats. So at the trade deadline, Mark Canha, that was a huge risk. Did he turn out great for the Brewers? Yes, he did. He turned out phenomenal. More than the Brewers could have asked. But what I'm saying is that we go into every trade deadline, every offseason, every waiver wire, and we get the most high-risk, low-contract guy you could ever get. Luke Voigt, Darren Ruff. Daniel Vogelbach. I mean, you could go throughout the years and you could throw together 1,000,001 guys that the Brewers have signed in the offseason for a high-risk, low contract. And they don't turn out. They just don't. When do the Brewers finally make the move? When do they say, enough's enough? We need to put... The last time we really spent money was back in 2017 offseason leading into 2018 when we said, screw it. We're going to get Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain. What happened the next year? NLCS. Since then, we have not spent money on a player. There's your X factor. You want to have an X factor? There it is. We're trying to throw pieces together and pray. You know what Mark Anastasio does for this Brewers team? He puts a team on the field that can get them some wins, stay consistent. They're going to take bites out of the apple. We want to get 1,000,000 bites out of the apple, so they're going to take 1,000,000 bites out of that apple, but we're never going to get over the hump. Why? We don't get bats to do it. We get bullpen help. We make bullpen help. Pompous coming to the Brewers. Paguero coming to the Brewers. Nobody expected anything out of them. All of a sudden, you got your setup man and your 7th inning guy. Uribe came up, was pretty good. Bryce Wilson pitched good down the stretch. Trevor McGill became a solid relief pitcher. The starting rotation, Wade Miley came back, was a pretty good starter. Hauser had his rough outings, had his good outings. Corbin Burns was Corbin Burns. Woodruff, when he came back, was dominant. Freddie Peralta had a pretty dang good year. Colin Ray pitched phenomenal for the situation he was put in, because if people want to hate on Colin Ray, that's what you were going to get, and he pitched phenomenal for what he was thrown into the role to be. He replaced Brandon Woodruff. The soft-throwing Colin Ray replaced Brandon Woodruff in a rotation. He pitched pretty good for what was asked of him. Julio Teheran came on, pitched pretty good for the Brewers there for a while, struggled, got hurt, came back, went to the bullpen, got DFA'd, now he's with AAA. Pitching was fine. We didn't need to add in the pitching department, maybe another bullpen arm instead of Andrew Chafin, because that was a terrible trade. Peter Strzelecki, I'm glad he was struggling, so it's okay that he left, but Andrew Chafin did not do anything for the Brewers. You could have added a bullpen arm. If you really wanted to load up the starting rotation, you could have added a starter. But you didn't need it. You needed lineup help. Carlos Santana, pretty good first baseman, came up with some big hits, but he wasn't an over-the-top hitter. Mark Canha, he became a pretty darn good hitter for the Brewers. But there was holes up and down the lineup. And we did not have a power bat. We didn't have a fix for that. We didn't have a a cause. We didn't have that dominant guy in our starting lineup who everybody was afraid of. Nobody was afraid of the Brewers. No starting pitcher went into a game and was afraid to face this Brewers lineup. They got a little weary around William Contreras, Mark Canha when he was hot. There ain't a guy who didn't want to pitch Christian Yelich. Jam him inside, make him hit the inside fastball. Willie Adames, throw it in the dirt. He'll swing at it. This team did not have consistent bats, and ownership, management did not add any consistent bats at the trade deadline. Waiver wire, there was a lot of guys out there. A lot of guys went unclaimed. The Brewers didn't look at them, didn't get a piece out of it. Got Josh Donaldson. That ended up great for the Brewers. Management needs to be looked at here under a microscope in the offseason. Another spot that needs to be looked at, and a big question mark for the Brewers, what are we going to do about our two hitting coaches? I haven't seen them fix a bat in Milwaukee. You look at when Cody Bellinger went to the Cubs and just how that just changed his career. He was on a downhill slope with the Dodgers. Jump ship, goes over to the Cubs, and then he's a 300 hitter. And he's back to being Cody Bellinger. We got two duds in the dugout who stand there, and like I said, I've said it a million times. I don't know what they do on those iPads. I finally dialed it down to maybe they're playing Mario Kart against each other. All I can think. Because they aren't fixing bats. They aren't saying, hey, Craig, Joey Wiemer needs to go away now because Joey Wiemer does not even, his form isn't even right. I don't even know how he's made it this far with how he's swinging a baseball bat. I don't know. I don't know what the hitting coaches for the Brewers. I really don't. There needs to be a change. There really does. And another question leading into the offseason, are the Brewers going to focus on potentially adding a power bat to this lineup? Not Rowdy Tellez. Not a Rowdy Tellez guy. Not a Josh Donaldson. Oh, he's got thump every once in a while. Not Josh Donaldson. I'm talking a 30 home run. I'm talking a high RBI, 260 above average, first base, third. It doesn't matter the position. When are we going to add that bat, that guy, into this lineup? That's going to put us back on the map as a scary offense. An offense you don't want to face. 2018, you did not want to face the Brewers offense. You didn't want to see them. Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun, Jesus Aguilar, Moustakas. That team was loaded up. You didn't want to face the lineup. But you know what was different about 2018 to the rest of these years? Dominant pitching, dominant lineup. There's your two factors. We're trying to go into every season right now with pitching and defense. This day and age in the game of baseball only gets you so far. Only can take you so far. We have Corbin Burnes, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta. Arguably the best starting rotation in baseball. Starting at least with the three. Wade Miley, nothing to shake your head at. So you could argue one, if not the best, one of the best starting rotations in all of baseball. You have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. You have one of the worst lineups in all of baseball. That was the 2023 season for the Milwaukee Brewers. Looking at another big offseason question for the Brewers. What about this third base coach situation? A lot of terrible sends or holds. I miss Eddie Cedar. Gotta be honest with you. I miss Eddie Cedar. They need to make a change over there at third base because he cost us a couple runs. Bloop single there potentially could have sent Yelich. They left Yelich at third. Loaded up the bases. We watched the rest of that inning. We know how the Brewers win that series. Nobody was going to score. Took chances in terrible spots. And when we needed him to take a chance, held up the runners. I really do wonder if there's any big bats even in their sights right now. If they're looking at anybody, if going into free agency here, if they're hoping maybe this guy will sign for less money because we love to play low ball. Is Mark Canha a possibility to come back to Milwaukee? Do we bring Carlos Santana back to this team? A couple of pretty decent bats that you could bring back. Mark Canha, maybe in a full season with Milwaukee, puts up numbers like he did in the second half with the Brewers. Carlos Santana, good first baseman, decent bat, always wanted to play for the Brewers. Maybe you bring him back. Maybe you do. But I tell you what, this next offseason, a lot of changes need to be made for the Brewers. A lot of changes. Looking at a couple another off-season question marks. What's the starting rotation going to look like come next year? Burns is on his last year. Woodruff on his last year of his contract. Are we getting those guys back, or we trade them in the offseason? What is this rotation going to look like going into next year? And the biggest question of all, who's managing this Brewers team? Is Craig Counsell coming back? I saw a report Buck Showalter might be interviewing in Milwaukee here in December. Buck Showalter coming to Milwaukee. Interesting to see what might come of this next season here for the Brewers, this next off season for the Brewers. But with that, I want to jump into a question I had for some viewers out there. I put out the question. I'm going to name off a couple of viewers and their answers. I said in the question, heading into the offseason now, what did you guys think of this season? What needs to change this offseason? Who would you keep and move on from? Give me all of your thoughts in watching what we did. And actually, my cousin, first guy to shout out there, and he said, trade Burns, Adames, and Weimer. Agree with that. Agree with that 100%. For a solid prospect package or a third baseman. Move Turang to short. Give Monasterio a shot to win second base. Love that idea right there. And sign Woodruff to a 5-year contract extension. Right there. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more with that take. Burns, Adames, Weimer. See you later. We'll get a package deal. We'll package them up. We'll give you this. We need a third baseman. We need somebody here who can consistently hit. Third base, first base, whatever you can find. Then he shouted out and he said, lineup for next year. He's throwing out his lineup already. He's ready to rock. He's like, season's over, but we're ready to go next year. He's got Contreras at catcher, Tellez and Canha at first. You can live with it. Monasterio at second. Toro, a guy I forgot about, Abraham Toro. Still sitting with a .414 average in the majors. 8 hits and 19 at-bats or something like that. 2 home runs. 9 RBIs. Didn't get a shot. Toro sitting at third base. Shortstop, Turang. And then left field, he's got Yelich until Churro is called up. Center field, he's got Garrett Mitchell. Right field, he's got Frelick. And at DH, he's got a rotation of Yelich, Tellez, and Canha. I dig that lineup. I really do. I dig that lineup. I can live with that lineup right there. Another guy I had text in, this is from Mike. Mike says, in the past, we struck out a lot with low batting average, but could hang in there because we generally were up there in home run totals. We are too reliant on rookies this season. That's the direction they went, so now have to capitalize on that experience. To me, that means bring in Churro. That's Weimer, Turang, Frelick, and Churro regularly playing. I try to do with Contreras what Atlanta did with Acuna and Elbies and lock them up for a long time. Agree with that. Lock up. I agree with that, but I agree with locking up the rookies for a long time. At least Frelick, Mitchell, and Churro. Weimer, I'm not sold on Weimer. Turang, too. Turang's solid glove. I think his back can come around. I'm not sold on Weimer, though. And then he says, which means less money than he would be making cumulatively. That's big words. Big words. Big words there. Struggling with the words. But it's a lot more money than he's making now. I agree with that. I really do. I agree with signing these rookies to long-term deals. That's how the Atlanta Braves keep these guys and stay consistently in the hunt for the playoffs and for deep playoff runs. He also continued to say, I love Adames, but he clearly doesn't have a clutch gene offensively. I've never seen a guy whiff on so many strikes where a pitch has a poor location. I have. It's called Ryan Braun. Ryan Braun, my favorite Brewer of all time. I tell you this now. But the worst guy for a curveball in the opposite batter's box. Because if you wanted to see a guy whiff, Ryan Braun swinging at that low curveball, bouncing in the dirt, that was something to watch. That was Ryan Braun right there. But I agree. Adames, terrible for chasing pitches. It pains me to say I really like him, but you can't give him big shortstop money. The Cubs can afford to pay Dansby Swanson for those okay offensive numbers. If Adames is hitting 205 at the All-Star break, that isn't going to fly if he's making big contract dough. They need to trade for starting pitching because A, I don't think we'll retain Burns. B, Woody, with these recent injuries, I'm hesitant to sign long-term. I never thought about that way. I would not sign Burns to a huge deal, but I would sign Burns back over Woodruff. I would not sign Woodruff to a huge deal, but I would sign him back before Burns. And then C, Anastasio isn't going to pay people. Yelich seems to be Braun. And Anastasio agreed to pay the face of the franchise. All the other players are a revolving door. 100% agree with you, Mike. That is plain and simple it. We paid one guy. Worst part is he's not even putting up numbers like we had gotten out of Ryan Braun. Ryan Braun at least had a clutch gene left in his pants there for the rest of his career with the Brewers. Christian Yelich is so far from clutch, it's not even funny. Not even a consistent bat at times for the Brewers. When I need Yelich the most, when this Brewers team needs Christian Yelich the most, he is not there for this team. So, Mike, I agree 100% with what you're saying there. Doreen Moore, CC stays. We need more decent pitchers and closers in the bullpen and some decent hitting. I completely agree with you there, Doreen, 100%. That is right there. Some hitting is what the Brewers need in this offseason. But with that is about all I have for the season wrap up. We're going to keep covering the Brewers. We're going to cover them all off season, right up into next season. You can't miss a beat with Wisconsin Sports on the Go with trades. We're going to keep you up to date with everything there is to talk about Brewers. I just wanted to give a special thank you to my fiance. She's helped me a lot with my Brewer Talks, with my podcast here, and keeping it going throughout the season here, and also to my future father-in-law, big Brewer fan out there. He always is there to talk Brewers with me, gives me great ideas and topics to talk about. And then a good buddy of mine, he keeps me up to date on everything he's thinking Brewers. All those people right there, friends, family. I have a lot of family members who keep me up to date. They all contribute into this podcast and help me create topics and get ideas leading up into each and every day when I talk to you guys about what I'm thinking. They are all right behind me telling me about it. So I just want to give a huge thank you to them guys because they have been with me through this entire Brewers season here, helping me along the way. A lot of late nights watching the Brewers, a lot of early mornings. I mean, it's been a grind keeping up with the Brewers, but they've been right with me and supporting me through it. So I just want to give a big thank you to those guys. And then also I wanted to announce that tomorrow we have a new, I guess you would call him color guy. We're going to call him a color guy. He's going to be there to give me some information and talk a little bit with me and just keep it entertaining, keep it up to beat. He's going to be joining tomorrow. We're going to have a special Saturday episode where we will be talking the Badgers. They will have a game. And then we'll also be talking the Packers. With the Brewers going on this week, we haven't talked a lot about the Badgers, a lot about the Packers. He's coming on tomorrow. We're going to start up. We're going to be talking about the Badgers. We're going to be talking about the Packers. Brewers season, well, he might have some interesting stuff to bring up, but we're going to be talking about those guys, so can't wait to have him on again. I just want to say thank you to all those guys that I had just mentioned. Thank you to friends and family, and thank you guys for listening and staying up to date with the Brewers with me right here on Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trade. Again, thank you guys for listening. Deuces, Brew Crew.